Alright, well, I'll just get right into it. I don't have any kind of introduction, so I wanted to make this video because I wanted to talk about this topic. And this topic is banning hate speech, and it's kind of whether or not we should or should not do it. And I don't think we should, because I think that it really opens us up for tyranny. I mean, freedom of speech is fundamental to this country. It's fundamental to modern or any democracy, modern or past. And if we start limiting it, we run into some troubles. We already limit it to some extent with incitement now, and that's an understandable one, because if you have somebody allowed to just get up and try to get a crowd to resist the United States government or rebel or whatever, it's a bit different. But when you start limiting hate speech, you run into the problem of, what is hate speech? Now, a lot of people are going to immediately say, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows what hate speech is. Blah, 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 blah. But let's really talk about this, because it's not that I don't understand what racism is, or sexism, or Islamophobia, or anti-Semitism, or fat phobia, if that exists. I'm not real sure that one does, but the other ones do. And you can't just say, oh, well, we just ban those things and everything will be good. Because what happens, yeah? Let's say you elect somebody to Congress, to the House of Representatives. Well, they're only there for 2 years. So for only 2 years can that person ensure that the use of that law is used in the proper way. And they're not even the part of the government, the branch that actually enforces the law. So they're not actually even the one that decides whether or not that law is used properly. But they're still there for 2 years. They can make more laws if they want to support it, make it more clear. You have the senator, which is there for only 6 years. Now that's a longer time, yeah, basic math, but still only 6 years, not even a decade. Almost a decade, but not quite there. Once again, both of these branches, or both of these houses of government, don't actually belong to the branch which enforces the law. So keep that in mind. They make the law, but they don't enforce it. Then you have the Supreme Court, which can interpret the Constitution, and there's a lot of other stuff. They don't just interpret the Constitution, but that's their primary function with regards to the government. And look, they're there for life, so you have a better chance that they're going to make sure things work out correctly. But they're also appointed by the president and approved by Congress. So when somebody's there for life, yes, they're all there for life, but they're not there for your life. And that's a distinction I think needs to be made. They're not there for your entire life. They're there for theirs, and theirs can be shorter than yours, and theirs can end when yours is still young. Point being, you can have all of the entire Supreme Court empty and need appointments from one president. One president can choose all of them, all seats. And one Congress can accept all of them. What does that mean? What does this mean? And then again, we'll go over the president too, because you're only there for 8 years. That's, again, it's not even a decade. Nobody, except for the Supreme Court, is there for a decade unless reelected. And president can't even be reelected past 8 years. What does this mean? This means that within your lifetime, you may see conservative Supreme Courts, liberal Supreme Courts, conservative presidents, liberal presidents, conservative Congresses, liberal Congresses, yada, 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 back and forth. What does that mean? I'm still not saying it. I'm getting to it. Promise. What that means, and this is the big bombshell. What that means is somebody who is going to be in power may not agree with you. And they may use those laws in ways which you do not agree with. And you might say, but it's a law. How can you just use it? Here's how you use it. In Germany, this is a specific example. The way that they get to banning, say, denial of the Holocaust is incitement. How does denying the Holocaust incite violence? Because, in their legal opinion, it leads to incitement of hate, which leads to potentially violence. Well, here in the United States, if we put into the books, the big book of U.S. laws, that you can't say something of hate speech, it's not going to be a law that says you can't say racist things. It's going to be done through some channel, through piles and piles and piles of other laws and useless words and things that most of us don't understand unless we spend a heck of a lot of time on it. And that leaves wiggle room. And that wiggle room can be used by the person that will be in power, who you don't agree with, to do something. They may use it to do something that you don't agree with. And what does that mean? That means if you open up the door to hate speech or offensive speech, that definition is decided by whoever's in power. So, put it into a right now perspective. Those of you voting for Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, do you want Donald Trump to have those powers? To decide, because, keep this in mind, the executive branch is the branch that enforces the law. Do you want Donald Trump and those under him to have that power? I don't think you do. And those of you voting for Donald Trump, now I don't think any of you are actually advocating for these laws, but get it out there just in case one of you is. Do you want Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders to have those powers? Do you think that's a good idea? Is it possible that one of those three may use those powers irresponsibly? If the answer is even yes, to the ones now, to the people running now for the control of that executive branch, then you shouldn't want those laws, because they might win, and they might use those laws inappropriately. Make matters worse, the next election, you don't even know who's going to be running. You don't even know who's going to have a chance at that. 2 years ago, if you told me Donald Trump would be this close to the presidency, I would have laughed in your face. Now he's a serious contender. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton was a little more predictable, but the other two, not so much. And it's unlikely Bernie will be the president, but just putting it out there that he's come a long way from an unknown senator to where he is. And so in 4 years, do you think you know who's going to be running? We don't even know who's going to be president at that time. We don't know in 10 years who's going to be running. I suppose I should say in 8 years who's going to be running. Or in 16 years. We don't know. And you don't know. And that's a problem, because we can't know, and we won't know until the election's happening. And so, by having these laws, you're going to allow that person down the line, some person 40-some years off, to have the potential to completely trample on your rights or the rights of other Americans. And that's not a risk that we should be willing to take. And that's all I have to say. Now you probably already have if you're angry. If you're supporting what I'm saying, you're probably just saying, oh yeah. But whatever. So this might be the only video I make. Who knows? I don't know. I have no idea. But have a good night or day. Whatever.